Bienvenidos en Idiomas en Serio. Bienvenidos en Idiomas en Serio. Mi nombre es Kiersten. Soy una maestra de inglés aquí en IES. Today, we're going to be talking about the simple verb tenses in English. But before we dive into today's discussion, I want to start off with a small exercise. I'm going to give you 3 different sentences. Can you guess which verb tense each sentence is in? Number 1, they went to a party last night. Number 2, I drive to work every day. Number 3, she will graduate in June. In sentence number 1, the sentence talks about one action that's happened in the past. Some clues to prove that it's in the past is the verb conjugation went, as well as the time expression last night. If you guessed that this sentence is in the simple past tense, you were correct. In sentence number 2, the sentence talks about one action that happens very often. It happens habitually. Some of the clues to show you that this sentence is in the present is that you have the verb base, drive, as well as the time expression of every day. If you guess that sentence number 2 is in the simple present tense, then you were correct. In sentence number 3, it talks about a single action in the future. Some of the clues to show that this is happening in the future is the verb will, as well as the time expression in June. If you guess that this sentence is in the simple future tense, you were correct. If you struggled guessing the simple verb tense for each of these sentences, then you should continue watching this video as we discuss the simple verb tenses of English. Simple verb tenses are probably the first verb tenses that you learned or will learn in English. Simple verb tenses usually refer to a single action or generally express facts and a situation that existed in the past, exist in the present, or will exist in the future. First, let's talk about the simple past tense. We use the simple past tense to talk about a single action that happened at some point in the past, or we use it to talk about past habits. To form the simple past verb, you must add ed to the end of the verb base for regular verbs. For example, kick would be kicked. For irregular verbs, there are many different kinds of endings. For example, if you conjugate the verb go, you can conjugate it into the simple past went, or the past participle gone. There are no rules on how to conjugate irregular verbs. You will have to memorize and study irregular verbs the same way that you learn vocabulary. Here are some examples of the simple past tense. Number 1, Jeff bought a new car yesterday. Here, the verb bought is the conjugation of the verb buy. Buy is the verb base, which is then conjugated into the simple past form, bought. Number 2, Amy swam in the pool yesterday. The verb swam is the conjugated verb from swim. Number 3, they played soccer last night. In this sentence, we use the verb play. Play is a regular verb, so we simply add an ed to the end of the base form. Now let's talk about the simple present tense. Simple present is used to talk about actions that happen every day or habitually. Simple present tense, we use verbs in their base form. This means that we do not add any additional endings, unless, of course, your subjects are he, she, it, or we're talking in the third person. Here are some examples of sentences in the simple present tense. Number 1, he goes for a walk every afternoon. Since the subject in this sentence is he, the verb go changes to goes. Number 2, Mary studies English on Mondays and Wednesday. Since we're using the third person, Mary, study changes to studies. The last simple verb tense in English is the simple future tense. The simple future tense is used to talk about an action or condition that begins and ends in the future. We use the simple future tense to express a future action using will or going to with a verb base. It is important to note that when we use going to, we must first use the verb be in the present tense. So we can use am, is, or are depending on the subject. Here are some examples using will. They will have an exam next week. The children will go back to school in August. I will visit you soon. Now I'm going to give you some examples with going to. We are going to get married next year. He is going to ask you out on a date. Now that's all for today's lesson. I hope that you've learned something, and I hope that you start finding ways to use the simple past, simple present, and the simple future in your everyday language. That way, you'll be one step closer to speaking like a true native. Thanks for watching. Adios!